They say that a person, if they receive their spiritual opening by virtue or through the prism of the Qur'an, then there is no greater spiritual opening than that. And I think part of connecting to the Qur'an is really understanding what the Qur'an is. It's a book which is alive. It's a book which is still giving, as we know that the tanzil, the actual revelation of the Qur'an has been sealed, by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. However, what remains is the tanazzul of the ma'ani, the outpouring and the giving of the meaning. So many of the scholars would say that every single Ramadan I have openings in the deeper meanings and realities that were not present to me in the Ramadan that came prior. And I think, obviously, similarly, the Arabic is not my first language. And I remember becoming Muslim. I really enjoyed listening to beautiful reciters of the Qur'an. And I think there's something in the Qur'an being that which is recited. It's an incantation. It's not just read as in like without the sound. And that resonance, because of its divine essence, it's the literal, unadulterated word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it will speak to the heart in ways that the mind perhaps is unable to fully comprehend. And I think part of it is the Qur'an is like a mirror, and it shows us the way we come to the Qur'an. So, Hudan lil muttaqeen is the first, stipulation. It's a guidance for the people of that consciousness. And I think just listening, this is one of the practices of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, just to actively listen to the Qur'an. So if we're not able to fully understand the meanings, I think maybe there's also an invitation there, because, many of our brothers and sisters that do have the blessing, and it is a blessing of having fluency in the Arabic language or Arabic as their first language, can often miss that. And there is this natural, immediate interpretation of the words. Whereas if you're not able to do that, you have to activate something deeper within you, which is the heart and your soul. And there are many examples of this, where, the Ajami, the non-Arab speaker, yatawajid, it was just in the state of wajd, of ecstasy when listening to the Qur'an. And people are like, what's up with him? Like, why are they why are they so moved by it? And he turned around with tears rolling down his face, said, my tongue is not Arabic, but my heart very well understands. And that's one of the things I think, particularly someone that's embraced Islam, sometimes like, why do we have to pray in Arabic? Why do we have to read in Arabic? But part of it, if we understand that this is the medium, there has to be a medium. There has to be a choice of language in order for the preservation of the message, but it's not in any way a blockage. And I think part of it is just allowing one's heart to be soothed by the Qur'an. If we, for example, in the Fatiha, it's not the Fatiha if you don't have the elongations, the mudud, for example. وَلَضَّالِّينَ. That resonance has like a spiritual surgery and almost like pinpoint certain things in the heart and the soul if we're really hearkening to it. You can't listen to the Quran other than it has a shifting effect of, in impact on one's consciousness. Now, in terms of practically, I'd also say that, definitely, whilst knowing that the Quran is not limited to the translation, as we both know, CD, like translation is one rendering, it's an interpretation, it's of a particular understanding, but that can help us kind of follow. The beauty of the great stories within the Quran and the message of hope within the Quran. It's important that we do cognitively kind of connect to those things. But in terms of to specifically get to the question, one of the things that they mention even here, like, and they are Arabs, they say it's good to recite, if you can, because there is a blessing in just that recitation, whether you understand it or you don't. It's a meditation. and just the primary understanding is this is God's communication to me, God's speaking to me. They say if you want to speak to God, then enter into prayer. If you want God to speak to you, then read His word. But also, I think it's important, this idea of a wird, of a daily portion of that which is manageable, even if it's like a page or half a page, of just going through a nice translation. There's some brilliant translations out now, and just contemplating on those meanings, and understanding. Just in closing, one of the things they mention about in knowing the self, three primary things they talk about: tafakkur, tadabbur, and tark al-shahawat. So this active contemplation, to be basically in a meditative state, and engaging with the incantations and the resonance of the Qur'an over the heart helps align the soul, helps align the mind and the spirit. And then tark al-shahawat, well, in Ramadan we're leaving eating and drinking and intimacy. So naturally that's going to open up the basira, one's inner sight, which gets one to know oneself better. وَمَنْ عَرَفَ نَفْسَهُ فَقَدْ عَرَفَ رَبَّهُ. The more that we know ourselves, the more we know God. So yeah, I mean, they talk about it's good to have a portion in the day and the night, because it's like different things. Maybe there's certain kind of exercises that you can do during the day that, it may be best to do it both in the day and the night. But these spiritual exercises, it gives something different. Even like with the prayer, the cross-pollination of the prayers throughout the day and the night, and the rotation, these kind of sacred rhythms and these cosmic kind of spheres that we go around. So to have a portion in the day and a portion of the night, the greatest time is before Fajr. I mean, if we're able to do that, because there's this immense kind of intensity there. And the nice thing about in Ramadan is typically we're up, because even if we're not able to pray the night prayer, typically it's very rare we're going to be skipping our pre-dawn meal. So if you're up there, even if it's just getting ready, I don't know, whatever it is, the dates or quite possibly the samosas, whatever you guys are into, like just recite the Fatiha, recite Qul Huwallahu Ahad. There's nothing less about that. I mean, if you recite Qul Huwallahu Ahad 3 times, it has the same reward and light and illumination of reciting the entire Qur'an. So there's nothing little about the Qur'an. Do that which you know, and permeate one's time and preparation in those times. But they say it's interesting. One of the great people of God, Imam Abdurrahman As-Seggaf, and others, they say that because of their own particular state, they found they wouldn't like to fast during the day. And they asked, they wouldn't like to recite during the day when they were fasting. And they asked, why don't you like to do it? And he said, because when I recite the Qur'an, I have this sweetness, this taste that comes to my mouth, like the taste sweeter than the taste of honey. And I'd like to join in with other people in what they're going through, so I just kind of move it to the night. Now that's something that Allah can give to anyone, and that's something that Allah absolutely gives to those people that have worked on themselves and come close to Him.